So we're gonna start on this basic gate valve. This ought to cover the packing, bonnet, and simple flange tightening. We'll start with the bonnet. And from what I read is 1, 2. This isn't actually a round, so you can't go normally like they said, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I start with my 1. This would be 2 back here. I go 3 here, 4 here. Next one's here, 5. And then finish here with 6. That should cover that. Most of these you get a little movement out of. Most of them are like the smaller ones are all metal to metal. If you get a bonnet leak on a small valve, it's really hard to repair that, but you can get some good movement out of these. And then on the flanges, so the first thing I would do is I just go around, make sure that they're all tight, like you don't have any loose bolts, and then I check for a bird mouth. Like if there's one section of flange that's tighter than the other, I start on the open section and try to close that a little bit. Probably more than likely that's where your leak's going to be originating from. Like I said, just check for the bird mouth in the flange. Just go around, make sure all the bolts are tight before you start. Before you start actually like ringing it and going like cross pattern and stuff, just check for a loose one. On a 4 bolt, I mean, it's really simple. You do 1, 2, 3, 4, it's cross. If it's leaking in one spot, so like if you find a leak between, let's just say this is 8 or 12, however many, if you find a leak between these 2 studs, or like on top of this stud, I usually go like, so I go 2 back on this one, and then I'll tighten that second one back from the one I found the leak at, then go over here to the second one in this direction, come back to the first one in this direction, then this one, then tighten the one where you found the leak. Kind of pull it evenly. If you find it in there, I'll try to tighten like a quarter maybe. Yeah. But try to pinpoint where it's coming from and then like move in opposite directions until you get to it. Just pick a couple bolts to each side and go toward it. The packing, pretty simple there. So that one's pretty loose. Try to, if it's above you, you can look up. If it's in front of you, you can get down and look at it. Try to pull this down level. So get you a quarter turn on each side. I already went past that on that one, but it's really loose. So right now it's pretty snug. I'll go ahead and start making quarter turn per side. That's snug there. That's definitely wrench tight. So then they could look corroded. You might be able to get them to move, but the main thing to do if you're pulling on one that is corroded, or you know, it might be galled up, might not even look that bad. But watch for this top of the bolt to twist with the nut. If it starts to do that, stop, because it'll snap. One more quarter turn on that and that's pretty snug. And like I said, just you get down eyeball, make sure that looks pretty even. Usually you can just count the threads on each side, get them about the same. I got some threaded connections down here. I'll take this bull plug out and we'll Teflon that. I like to hold the Teflon under my thumb finger until I get around. And that way I know I got it going in the right direction because I'm actually threading this. But like I said, make sure you get above that lead thread. That way when you go to put it in, it doesn't, because if you're down here, it'll push the Teflon down. I hand tighten that, then just put your pipe wrench on there. If it's threaded, this will move. If it's welded, and you're gonna bear down on it, you might consider a backup right here so you don't put any pressure on this weld. So if this connection, if the nipple coming off is threaded, that's fine. If it's welded here and threaded here, you're fine. But if it's welded here and here, I would put a backup right here. All right, move on to this check valve bonnet. This will give you a better idea of that torque pattern because we have 8 bolts. So you do 4 corners, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's 5, 6, 7, 8. This one's gonna definitely require backup. So I start at top, 2, 6. The only reason I'm going over the pattern thing is, like I said, if you find a leak all the way around that or sometimes when you stop it in one spot, you start chasing. So, y'all find these leaking very often? Yeah, that's where the pin is for the swing check. Yeah. So, I mean, that can be tightened, but a lot of times it's pretty much as tight as it's gonna get. You can try it, but And this right here, this one actually, this is the ball valve you referenced. It's got the packing nut under the handle. This one, some of them you have to remove the handle to access this one. This one you can actually fit the wrench, the open end of the wrench under. So if you're going to use the open end, you can just slide it right under it. Just hold the handle in place and just give it a good turn. You definitely don't want to over tighten these. So just like a slight pull, when you feel it snug up, you can stop. Even if you have to take the handle off, that's where your crescent wrench comes in. So you just tighten it down, put it to where it fits the stem, hold this, and then tighten. And then it is a 3-piece, so you have 8 Allen bolts that hold each side of the body, like each flange basically to the body. Those, I mean, I don't know how often y'all come across leaks right here. It's occasionally, but that's where your Allen's coming. So you just, I would do your cross pattern on these just like you do any other 4-bolt flange. Start at my top corner, snug. This would be 1, 2, and then I come up, straight up. That'd be my number 3. And then go down to the bottom corner, that'd be number 4. And you do the same thing on the other side. I mean, it depends on what side it's leaking from, but just this packing right here, that's just a regular eye bolt. Same thing as the bigger gate valve. This, y'all come across these small ones a lot, I'm sure. That's got the, you have to have like 2 1/2-inch wrenches basically, because it's got a nut on the back. It's not an eye bolt. Like I said, that one, it's really going to require that I have another 1/2-inch wrench, because I won't be able to get that down in between the, yeah, it won't fit. So I got a couple pulls on it, but most of the time this back nut's going to spin when you try to tighten this front one. We got some more threaded connections down there. I'm sure y'all deal with unions every now and then. Typically these ends will be welded most of the time. If that union's leaking, you know the only thing you can do is tighten this collar. But if it is threaded then, and this is not leaking, then you want to hold this with a crescent wrench, tighten this with your pipe wrench. Because if you spin that too far, it could cause a leak. But on this one, you definitely want to hold back up if you're tightening that union, because like I said, this is usually Teflon. And when you engage this will probably want to spin with it. But you don't want that to spin. All you want to do is tighten this collar. And same thing for the cap down here. You want to hold this with your pipe wrench, channel locks. I'm guessing you can grab piping with channel locks, just not nuts. I don't know. Maybe a pipe wrench, since you got to. Grab here and tighten that. Like, there's so many different types, so many different variations of this ball valve. All the packings are different. This one just has 2 packing nuts. It's got a V-slot at the top, so this can't move. You don't have to worry about a backup, so you just tighten the bottom. Some of them you have to remove the handle, this plate, everything to get to the packing. And it'll have either bolts or Allen head bolts, just hex head bolts or Allen head bolts, and you just tighten those up. This one's pretty standard. It's the same basic packing as this. You're just going to put a few turns on it, snug it till it's hand tight, 1/4 turn pass. And then get to those 2 fittings over there. So I got a little play. So if that one's leaking, I'll hold this valve body right here with my pipe wrench and tighten this fitting. Like, again, you don't want to readjust the alignment. They got the valve set the way they want them. If I spin this fitting, it's going to spin that valve if I'm not holding it. So just give it a little turn. Just check it again. All right, that's it. And then same for all, you know, every one. This valve right here, 1/4 turn valve, you have to take the handle off to get to the packing nut. So there's one set screw that holds this handle on. Take that Allen wrench, loosen it, and that's it right there. This retainer, just, it has to go back on. So keep that there. This is your packing nut right here. So just hold that, spin that. I mean, yeah, obviously you don't want the wrench to slip, but you don't get much movement out of them, but usually it doesn't take a whole lot. Usually don't, like I said, that barely spun at all. Some of these you'll get a whole lot of movement on, and this is more likely to move, this stem. But yeah, I would definitely put my crescent wrench on it just to ensure that it doesn't move. So like I said, close that crescent wrench up, small enough to grab your stem so it can't move. and then then tighten, just like that. Put it back together, put the little retaining ring back on, slip the handle on, snug it back up. Okay, this one, you have to remove the handle also with the nuts on the outside. And they actually have a spring back here and a washer, a couple of them. This one has a few pieces to it. And there's the packing nut. Hold the stem, make your adjustment. Should be good.
So how does it go back together? Does it go spring, washer, and then the handle, or?
Spring, the handle, this cap, and your washer and nut. So if you have to tighten on one side, I would definitely, if we're tightening, if there's a tubing fitting here and you got to tighten this bottom one, you can actually just hold this fitting and tighten that one. And the valve body leak, same thing. It's just that's a 1/2 inch nut. You're gonna have to hold back up on this. You can probably do it with your crescent wrench since it's pretty clear.
What about if you got tight?
That's actually small.
Leak right here.
Yeah.
Then would you hold that pipe to the?
This?
Yeah. No, the other. If you got a leak right there, yeah.
No, there's typically gonna have, so when you have a tubing fitting connected to a threaded fitting, which we would normally see right here. I just didn't have one. Sorry about that.
Right.
If you were to attempt to tighten this whole thing is going to want to spin with it. So they'd have to close this valve here. You'd have to loosen that ferrule, they would, and then they'd have to tighten that threaded fitting. So if you have a tubing fitting connected to a threading fitting, you can't tighten the threaded fitting. You can only tighten the tubing fitting.